Welcome back, Pokemon trainers. It is time for the finals here at the Portland Regional Championships. My name is Gabby Snyder, still joined here by Len Duell, and after 2 days of Pokemon action, we are down to the final 2 trainers.
Yeah, it's been a lot of great matches, a lot of interesting teams coming up against each other, and we are down to the final 2.
Yeah, so we will be having Joseph versus Bingjie, Palkia versus Yveltal, and quite the interesting matchup, I think, for a finals. I personally was not expecting to see a Palkia make finals, and quite honestly, I wasn't really expecting Yveltal either, so this should be a lot of fun to watch play out.
Yeah, it's interesting. 2 teams that are very weak to Xerneas, so you kind of...
Very weak to Xerneas.
Exemplifies that... even that there's a few enough Xerneas that you can bypass it some, that even if your matchup is poor, like we saw for Joe last round, there are ways to circumvent that, to find strange adjustments and answers, like the Venusaur lead, never looking for the sun. So we get these 2 Xerneas weak teams into the finals to both play a pretty defensive game.
Yeah, and what's really interesting to me as we go into team preview here for game 1 of the finals in Portland, there really is no speed control options on Joe's side of the field to counteract that Trick Room.
Yeah,
I mean, normally people will either bring a Trick Room of their own or a Taunt user or something to try and stop Trick Room from being set up, but I think Bingjie is going to be relatively unthreatened when it comes to getting it up on the field.
Yeah, the Fake Out will be the only thing that even stands in the way of Palkia just clicking Trick Room pretty much whenever it wants, because there's so little damage output against that Palkia. And so I don't think Joe's game plan can be stopping Trick Room. It has to be just playing within the Trick Room.
Definitely.
Seeding that speed control and just saying, yeah, but Palkia can't actually do that much damage to many of my Pokemon if there's Sun up. And Stack Attack I can't get through Metagross at all, so I can have it out on the field and finding the ways to take those attacks in Trick Room and respond with the bigger damage back.
Yeah, just as a bit of a recap for those of you who might be tuning in, Joseph is on the bottom side of your screen, and he is running a team of Groudon, Yveltal, Incineroar, Tapu Koko, Metagross, and Venusaur. Bingjie is going to be on the top of your screen with a Tapu Lele, Kartana, Palkia, Rayquaza, Stakataka, and Incineroar. The Palkia and the Incineroar making an appearance for Bingjie's lead versus the Incineroar and, oddly enough, the Venusaur on Joseph's side of the field.
Maybe not as oddly, in that is one other way to stop the Trick Room. Just put it to sleep. It's not the Amoonguss Spore, but the Sleep Powder will do to stop Palkia from being able to Trick Room, and may help against the Stack Attack as well. If you do want to deny the Trick Room and not just play in it, the Venusaur is a good tool to do that. The problem is avoiding the Incineroar just flare blitzing that
Yeah, but fortunately for Joseph, his own Incineroar is faster than the opposing Incineroar, which gives Venusaur the opportunity to go for that Sleep Powder, not worried about getting flinched from a Fake Out, putting Palkia to sleep and presumably stopping the Trick Room from activating this turn.
Yeah, and it's a good way to stall the time until the Trick Room, but it is just kind of a delay tactic, because unless you back up that sleep with damage onto the Palkia, it will wake up. It could be this turn, it could be the next one, but eventually it will wake up in Trick Room.
Well, Grass Knot is a great way to start dealing damage to Palkia, doing just above maybe 60% of its health. U-turn will bring it down to below half, as Incineroar also has the opportunity here to switch out and maybe send in something as well that Joseph can use to try and deal some big damage to that Palkia. In this case, it's going to be the Yveltal. So a good Pokemon to have out in this situation, especially since the Incineroar on Bingjie's side of the field will also take this opportunity to switch around. So don't have to worry about using Dark Aura to boost your opponent's offensive capabilities at this point in time. Snarl will certainly reduce the damage output from that Palkia, and still just a good spot, I think, for Joseph to be in, as Bingjie reveals that he also brought the Rayquaza with him onto the field.
Yeah, I think it's good timing to hit the field here. That Venusaur was able to do more with Grass Knot than I expected, and so you can't allow another Grass Knot into Palkia. The Rayquaza does a good job at denying that, as it can outspeed and target down that Venusaur. Has to watch out for foul play, though, from this Yveltal. That would be a bad trade to take.
Yeah, and it's all going to come down to, I think, how Joseph wants to prioritize here, because I feel like this Rayquaza is almost going to be forced to knock out that Venusaur. So if Palkia is able to stick around on the field and wake up at some point to use Trick Room, like you said, it is not going to be threatened by those Grass Knots. But predicting that the Venusaur on Joseph's side of the field will go for a Protect, and Dragon Ascent from that Rayquaza does not target down the Venusaur, instead targets down that Yveltal for some nice damage.
Yeah, calls the protect and goes into Yveltal, but if that's foul play and it's not the KO, I mean, that is very close. That foul play will come back and KO the Rayquaza, the berry, undoing a lot of that damage.
Undoing a lot of that damage, but still, that was so close to just knocking it out entirely, which I think is going to be really important for Joseph to acknowledge moving forwards into this game. Foul play from that Yveltal, though, will return a KO onto the Mega Rayquaza. And Palkia still asleep and still moving last, which I would expect it to be the slowest thing on the field given the fact that it's a Trick Room-based Pokemon, but you never know. Bingjie could just be pressing the Trick Room button and just hoping that...
I assume so. He's clicking the Trick Room button every turn,
yeah.
Just waiting for the opportunity. Probably Stakataka as the
final Pokemon.
As the final unrevealed Pokemon, and just looking for an opportunity to get that Trick Room up and then get Stakataka on the field and start putting out a lot of damage. Those Rock Slides will hurt these two a lot. The Fake Out's going to be an opportunity here to stop the Venusaur from getting a Grass Down onto Palkia and giving another chance for Palkia to wake up.
No Fake Out, though, from this Incineroar. Instead, Snarl from that Yveltal going to connect with both the Pokemon on Bingjie's side of the field, and I think tick Palkia just into knockout range for another Grass Knot. Venusaur goes for it. It connects. Will it be enough? And it is. So Palkia, put to sleep turn one, removed from the field before it can go for a Trick Room. And even though Incineroar does have the opportunity to U-turn and return to the field to go for another Fake Out or another Intimidate, I think the loss of Palkia on the Rayquaza relatively easily for Joseph is really just punishing Bingjie here.
Yeah, but it's still keeping the Fake Out alive means he can still get another opportune turn for Trick Room here, right? He can Fake Out. Probably the Venusaur is going to be the forced option. You don't want to just lose another Trick Room to Sleep Powder.
Yeah, definitely not.
So you're going to take probably a foul play into the Stakataka, maybe a Snarl. But then it's Stakataka versus the world. It's 4 turns to click Rock Slide and try to burn through this game. And Joe, able to play very defensively, it's going to make that difficult to accomplish.
Yeah, and we still haven't seen really what Joe has in the back of his party. We know that in the past, he's only brought one of his restricted Pokemon when we've seen him play on stream, so I'm curious if that's the case here as well. Fake Out going into that Venusaur, going to stop any threat of a Sleep Powder connecting with that Stakataka. Foul Play does about 50% of Stakataka's health and damage, but finally, Trick Room is able to get set up on the field, but you have to wonder if this is just too little too late.
I don't know. It's definitely a lot. These 2 KOs are probably easy to take this turn, whether it's Rock Slide and something from Incineroar into Venusaur or Gyro Ball into the Venusaur and Flare Blitz into the Yveltal. There's KOs to be taken.
And an Intimidate will certainly help those KOs be mitigated just a little bit here. The Yveltal leaving the field and Joseph's Incineroar taking its place instead. Venusaur going for a Protect as well, so Joseph being put on the defensive, trying to whittle down these turns of Trick Room. Rock Slide does connect with the Incineroar, so even with the Intimidate, that does a good amount of damage. And Bingjie's own Incineroar going for a Flare Blitz into the protecting Venusaur. Stakataka revealing that it's holding a Life Orb.
But this is exactly what Bingjie, or Joseph rather, needs to do. That's 1 turn of Trick Room gone. The Fake Out will help get rid of another. Further protects get rid of more. As those turns go away, as soon as Trick Room expires, Stakataka very vulnerable with the low HP it has, and every turn it tries to attack, the HP is going to get even lower as that Life Orb whittles away at its health.
Venusaur leaving the field and Yveltal taking its place for Joseph. Fake Out going to connect with that Stakataka, not allowing it to attack this turn, and Incineroar on Bingjie's side of the field going for a Flare Blitz. Going to connect with the Yveltal, not the Venusaur, and just falls short of a knockout.
Yeah, we saw this Yveltal at that health in against Incineroar earlier, with Flare Blitz actually could have been the KO, but since then we've gotten an Intimidate from the other Incineroar, now misses the KO, and that's another, now 2 turns of Trick Room gone. Protect available on Yveltal. These turns are quickly escaping from Bingjie, and that's kind of his timer on his chance to win the game.
Yeah, and Joe doing a great job of keeping up the pressure as well with Fake Out. Retreating that Incineroar once again, losing the Yveltal to a KO from Rock Slide, however, getting a Sucker Punch in the meantime. So even if the Incineroar on Bingjie's side of the field goes for a Flare Blitz here to target down that Venusaur to try and knock it out, that Stack Attacker only has one attack left in it before the Life Orb recoil damage will knock it out. And that Incineroar as well is losing health. So Joe just realizing what his win condition is, keeping the Intimidate around for later, keeping the Fake Out around for later. And even though both these trainers are down to their final two Pokemon, if this is theoretically the Incineroar and the Groudon, I think all Joe really has to do is find a way to end Trick Room. And it's actually the Metagross. Still not the worst spot to be in, but definitely this Incineroar on Bingjie's side of the field is looking a lot more scarier than it was a couple seconds ago.
Well, but it's been intimidated twice, right? So it's not the threat of that immediate KO onto Metagross, and the Stack Attack, along with only having one attack left, was never a threat to Metagross anyway, and those stopping tantrums to the Metagross are going to start doing a lot of damage. I think it's a great thing to come out and really ice this game as Trick Room expires soon, and the just wasn't enough damage output in Trick Room, wasn't enough time in Trick Room, wasn't enough health in Trick Room as Stack Attacker starts to run out of it.
Yeah, Fake Out connecting with the Incineroar on Bingjie's side of the field. Bullet Punch will do the last amount of damage to KO the Stack Attacker, and presumably if Trick Room ends, I believe this turn, you were correct that the Stomping Tantrum from Metagross should be enough to pick up the KO on Incineroar and lead Joseph into a advantage as we go into Game 2 of the finals here in Portland.
Yeah, I think he played that really well, using the Venusaur on the field early as his one way to deny Trick Room and just make the Trick Room harder on Bingjie. He got the long sleep that meant the Palkia just sat there for a long time, never set up the Trick Room. And we talked before the game about how Bingjie is most comfortable when Palkia is able to set the Trick Room, and Stack Attack is the sweeper in Trick Room because it keeps Stack Attack so much healthier.
Yep.
When Stack Attack is forced to set up the Trick Room itself, it always burns a huge amount of its health doing so, and then that makes every play more difficult. It means that Life Orb recoil starts to add up. It means you have to start worrying about even small pieces of chip damage coming in from things you don't attack. And that's exactly what happens. That foul play comes in as Stack Attacker goes for the Trick Room, loses 50% of its health, and then a Sucker Punch, a Bullet Punch, a few turns of Life Orb recoil, and Stack Attack is gone.
Yeah, you have to wonder, though, how different that game would have been. I mean, going back to turn 1 of Game 1, Joseph put the Palkia to sleep, and Palkia remained to sleep for the maximum amount of time, assuming that it, would have woken up the next turn if it didn't get knocked out. So If Bingjie's Palkia was able to wake up earlier and set up Trick Room earlier, I think we would have been looking at a much earlier game. But again, Joseph doesn't have much else to stop that Trick Room from being set up. He has to rely on the Sleep Powder, and he has to hope that Palkia remains asleep long enough for him to deal the damage needed to knock it out.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I would like to see him protect through that first turn and try to get Incineroar in on the second turn. If you can threaten the Fake Out on Venusaur and quick Trick Room on the same turn, then you're back to having a comfortable setup. The only reason he couldn't do that in turn 1 of Game 1 is because there was a Fake Out on the other side that canceled out his own Fake Out. And so something like this that allows Incineroar to come in later and now forces the Venusaur to consider which one of these Pokemon is going to Trick Room. It's going to make it much easier to get Trick Room up early in the game and not when he's down to 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, I laughed a little bit because this was one of the hypothetical leads we were talking about earlier with Bingjie, where if he was having trouble setting up Trick Room, why not just lead both of your Trick Room users? I mean, you could, one, play the guessing game and force your opponent to pick, is it going to be Stack Attacker or Palkia? Or if you're really concerned about losing one of these Pokemon so early on in the game, you could just click Trick Room on both these Pokemon. Not the best play, and probably why Bingjie's playing in the finals and I'm not. Switching out that Stack Attacker for the Incineroar on his side of the field, going to intimidate both of the Pokemon on Joseph's side, but more importantly, like you were just saying, bring the option of the Fake Out plus Trick Room play for the next turn. Palkia keeping itself safe. Foul play from that Yveltal connecting with that Incineroar for a little bit of chip damage, and Venusaur left to go for a Sleep Powder into the protecting Palkia.
Yeah, so exactly what I was hoping to see from Bingjie, where he gets the Fake Out pressure onto Venusaur without Palkia asleep and now has a very comfortable sleep comfortable chance to Trick Room. There was some counterplay there where Joseph could have switched to his own Incineroar to counter that on that last turn because he didn't lead it, but we don't see that. And so this should be Trick Room going up this turn, even though Incineroar comes in a little bit too late.
It does get the Intimidate down on the opposing Incineroar, though, which might make a little bit of a difference moving forwards, though you have to wonder if this Incineroar on Joseph's side of the field gets KO'd before the Stack Attacker makes an appearance. That will definitely allow that Stack Attacker to get in a sweeping position like it's more comfortable with, I think, in Bingjie's play style. Snarl from that Yveltal will lower the special attack of that Palkia by 1 stage, but will still allow it to go for a Trick Room, and finally this Palkia has set itself up for some success.
Yeah, he found a way to get the Trick Room up. He doesn't have the right attackers out in the Trick Room. The Incineroar at -1 attack, the Palkia at -1 special attack. These are not the things to make use of these next 4 turns, but now that the Trick Room is up, it's easy to pivot into the Pokemon that do make good use of it, like the Stack Attack. Is it coming out right now?
It is, actually. The Stack Attack returning to the field now that the speed is finally rolling in its favor. Bingjie as well, going for a U-turn onto the Yveltal on Joseph's side of the field. Could give him the opportunity to send that Palkia right back out immediately if that's what he decides. Could also go for something else, but that Palkia will be making another appearance. So both of these Trick Room sweepers are set up on the field. No Intimidates, no Snarls yet. Knockoff will connect with the Palkia, but we already know that it's holding that Z Crystal, so not going to remove any items. And Foul Play just falling short of the damage needed to knock it out.
Yeah, definitely looking for Stack Attacker to come into that spot that time. Was looking to punish Stack Attacker coming in with that same 50% cost before it gets to attack that it had when it set up the Trick Room itself. But it was Palkia that goes into that spot anyway. That's a health bar you're much more willing to burn. As now Stack Attacker is in there unintimidated at full health with Incineroar on the field. This is the optimum conditions for Stack Attacker to go on full offense.
Palkia immediately returning to the safety of Bingjie's party as the Incineroar on his side of the field comes into play just in time for Joseph to remove his own Incineroar and send in the Metagross instead. So Metagross not going to take a lot of damage from either of the attacks the Stack Attacker can throw at it, but Stack Attacker will target down that Yveltal instead with a Gyro Ball, just barely missing that KO. And more importantly, I think the Yveltal going for the Sucker Punch into the Incineroar slot. So just trying to get a little bit of chip damage down on that Palkia before it starts picking up knockouts with all those crazy powerful moves it's carrying.
Yeah, I mean, Palkia was low enough that Sucker Punch would have just KO'd it, and so he was looking to prevent an attack from Palkia by getting a KO of his own. Instead, Incineroar just comes in, not with the best Intimidate timing, but will provide a useful Fake Out here. You would love to just land the Gyro Ball into Yveltal now and get that KO that you got so close to getting on the last turn, but it's very easy for Incineroar to come in, get a very good Intimidate, threaten Fake Out to get through turn 4 of Trick Room, and mitigate the damage from that Gyro Ball. So I'd love to see a Rock Slide try to get some of this damage ahead.
Well, if that Stack Attacker is going for a Rock Slide, it will be intimidated as Yveltal leaves the field and Incineroar takes its place for Joseph. Metagross going for Protect as well, so Joseph just trying to whittle down these turns of Trick Room yet again. Rock Slide will connect with the Incineroar on Joseph's side of the field, bringing it down to just below half of its health, taking a little bit of damage from that Life Orb in return, and Incineroar attacking into the protecting Metagross.
Yeah, so Incineroar does come in at really good timing, gets the Intimidate at a perfect time. It's going to be a really useful Fake Out to protect this Metagross, but because Bingjie knows it's coming, does at least get punished with a Rock Slide.
And that Palkia returns to the field once again for the Incineroar. Bingjie may be looking to get that Incineroar back out on the field once Metagross has Mega Evolved. Fake Out does enough damage to that Palkia for the knockout, and Rock Slide from Stack Attacker will connect with both Pokemon on Joseph's side of the field. Gets the KO on the Incineroar, leaving Metagross with just a little bit of chip damage down onto it, picking up a Beast Boost in its attack. But if Metagross is able to land a Stomping Tantrum here, because it has not been intimidated since it still maintains Clear Body, that's an easy KO, and Bingjie is left without his Trick Room setters and his sweepers really just as Trick Room expires.
Yeah, he's lost 2 of his Pokemon, but I think he got pretty decent value out of the Stack Attacker there, better than we've seen in the other games. He got the giant Gyro Ball and the Yveltal that burned so much health even though it ate the berry back, and it got the KO onto the Incineroar with 2 Rock Slides, 2 really useful things for it to do. The Incineroar will get a chance to come back in, and we see the 4th.
And that 4th Pokemon is going to be the return of the Rayquaza for Bingjie.
Yeah, I think this is a great last Pokemon to have right as Trick Room is getting set to expire. The Dragon Ascent will turn into the main form of offense. You're going to look for this Incineroar that's still healthy enough against these two Pokemon. Should be. The Stomping Tantrum plus something from Yveltal will be close. But if it can get a chance to get an attack off, that'll be really good against the Metagross. And you're looking for the Rayquaza to carry the rest of the weight.
Yeah, and you have to wonder how Rayquaza is going to be able to do that. The more it relies on a move like Dragon Ascent, the lower its defenses are going to be, and as a result, the more damage that Joseph can deal. I like the double protect here from Joseph, keeping both this Yveltal and this Metagross safe from a potential fake out, but Bingjie not going for it, instead doubling into the Metagross slot with a Dragon Ascent and a Crunch from that Incineroar on his side of the field. Rayquaza as well, not choosing to Mega Evolve, so very interesting that both these trainers, have their Mega Pokemon on the field, but up until this moment in time, maintained their normal forms.
Yeah, both just sticking in those normal forms. Bingjie prioritizing that Metagross, knowing that if it's not gone quickly, the Rayquaza won't be able to deal with it well enough itself, and so it's got to go.
Yeah, but it looks like both these Pokemon will be Mega Evolving this turn. The Metagross on Joseph's side of the field no longer worried about being caught with an Intimidate due to the fact that Bingjie can no longer switch. It will be moving first. It will be going for a Stomping Tantrum into the opposing Incineroar, and that is enough to knock it out. So it's just left to this Rayquaza to keep Bingjie's hopes of a Game 3 and a tournament victory alive as it fires off a Dragon Ascent into the Yveltal on Joseph's side of the field. It connects and it does enough damage to knock it out, but its defenses have each been lowered one stage. It is now 2 versus 1, Joseph versus Bingjie. Rayquaza still has all of its health, but
crucially, it has no good offense against this Metagross. It doesn't have a way to get through this full health Metagross quickly enough to matter. Those Iron Heads on a -1 defense, Rayquaza will just deal with it so quickly. And yes, this Venusaur is here, probably not doing much, but you have to spend a turn Dragon Ascenting it too, which is just, and then with the Focus Sash attack, so that's 2 attacks. That's just too many attacks to get done when one Iron Head nearly KOs the Rayquaza.
It definitely puts it within bullet punch range as well, so unless this Dragon Ascent into the Mega Metagross here does enough damage to knock it out, which it certainly does not, or I don't even think that's within extreme speed range. If this Venusaur goes for an attack, Joseph becomes your 2020 Portland Regional Champion in a very well-played 2-0 victory against Bingjie. Unfortunately, Palkia, it did so well in this tournament. It got so close to wearing that crown, but it looks like Groudon Yveltal will reign supreme here in Portland today.
Yeah, Joseph did a really great job with what I thought at first was a poor matchup. As those games played out, you could see how the tools he had helped him play against that mode where he made it just difficult enough to get up that Trick Room, and then as soon as it was up, he did a really good job of making Bingjie kind of fritter away the turns, the fake outs, the protects, the intimidates, making those attacks just miss their KOs, all add up to the Trick Room expiring, and then the damage being gone. We talked before the game about Metagross's defense being really crucial, and you can see how the turns it was sitting there against Stack Attack has stopped all of Bingjie's momentum. When he's had to spend all or most of Palkia just getting the Trick Room, then he has no accessory attacker. When Stack Attack and Rayquaza, neither one can deal with the Metagross.
Yeah, and it's so cool to see Joseph handle that Trick Room so well, given the fact that he really only had, Fake Out and then Sleep Powder to try and power through it. I think a lot of trainers feel like they need to have something like Taunt or maybe even a Trick Room of their own to be able to handle those situations well, but Joseph just very confident in his play, very confident in how he was able to stall out those 5 turns that Trick Room was active, and as a result takes home a regional championship. So,
yeah, really impressive play.
Yeah, congratulations to Bingjie as well. Again, such a fun team to see play out here on stream this weekend. Palkia is one of those Pokemon that I'd love to see make a return someday, so thank you for allowing it to shine as we enter, the twilight of the Ultra format. So that is it for the tournament play here in Portland, but we do have a winner's interview coming up for you next, so please stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome back, Pokemon trainers, to the 2020 Portland Regional Championship. My name's Gabby Snyder. If you skip the middle here, that's Glenn Duell, and we have your 2020 Portland Regional Champion here, Joseph. How's it feel?
It feels amazing. It's funny though, because when you finish, you're like, oh, is this I won? You know, like it doesn't really hit you until like you really like go behind. Like now about being behind stage, I'm like, oh my god, I won. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, if you want to get up and go for a victory lap, like we'll wait for you right here.
I may after this.
So what was going through your head as you entered in the finals?
Yeah. So in Swiss, Bingjie absolutely bodied me. Like,
I didn't realize you guys played.
Yeah. So we had played round 5, and he pretty much just destroyed me with the Palkia, and I brought Coco both games, and I realized like the Metagross was fine. Groudon didn't do enough in our second game, and then I realized I was like, wait, why don't I just put everything on his team to sleep? Because his game plan obviously revolves around getting Trick Room up. So I'm like, if I put it to sleep, it doesn't matter. So I literally, like, I was talking to my friends before the game, and I'm like, I'm just going to put it to sleep. And I'm like, I hope that works. And it did work. Luckily, you saw in, like, game 1, it stayed asleep, which was helpful. And then it was just about, like, when I was going through, like, my whole thought process, I kind of realized, like, Metagross is really important in the back. And if you can remove the Palkia, which is, like, the main threat, and set up the Metagross in the end, you can do really well with it. And it's basically just about TR management and then also like preventing it from getting set up too early. So.
Cool.
What was your kind of reaction when it did go up fairly early in game 2?
Yeah,
you got the Incineroar out of the back and got the turn 2 Trick Room.
Yeah, when I saw that play, I'm like, ugh. I was like, because it's like one of those plays that it's pretty obvious, but like you don't think about it until it happens. And when it happened, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to just deal with it and position around it, which is why I got my Incineroar in right after, because I knew like he probably wouldn't go for the Water Z immediately after Snarl because it wouldn't do enough. It wouldn't kill my Incineroar. He saw that my Incineroar was AV before we in our last set. So I had a feeling he wouldn't do that. It was just calling what slot the stack came in on the next turn. I was thinking about doubling the Palkia, which he did swap into Stack Attack up, and then I also doubled the Incin, which paid off anyways because I chipped his Palkia a lot. I put in Fake Out range, which was my main goal anyways. And yeah, it was pretty much what it was is just kind of like knowing like what you want to do. Like my goals in the end were like to remove the Palkia first, and then if I can remove the Stack Attack like second, because those were the two like main threats. And that's what he did versus me in Swiss. He would just set it up and try and sweep me with both. So.
Yeah, and I thought you did a great job preserving the Metagross, because once that Palkia was gone and you were down to just the Rayquaza and the Stack Attack as offensive options against you, the Metagross was great.
And Stomping Tantrum is such a good move. It's very helpful. And I knew like the Stack Attacker couldn't really do anything to Metagross. That turn where he Rock Slid, I was like, please don't flinch my Metagross. I'm like, I just want to have the game guaranteed so I could just relax. And then after that happened, I was like, okay, this is fine, because he's forced to like pick a target, and he's choice banned, so he's locked into whatever he picks, so he can't kill both. So I was feeling pretty good after that point.
Cool. So, I mean, I've heard that you've run this team for a few tournaments now. Have you made any adjustments throughout like this post-Worlds format?
Yeah.
Or have you been doing relatively the same thing?
Yeah, so I really actually like this team I started using. So Kazuki got top 4 in Worlds, and I did take a lot of inspiration from it. The Venusaur changes the team a lot, and the way it functions changes a lot. For me, it was more so like I was like, okay, this team is pretty solid. I don't like the Mimikyu slot. I want to take I want to add a Venusaur for my Groudon matchups and for other matchups where sleep is helpful. And then it was basically just kind of the team kind of changed away from Kazuki's version to like more of my own because of the changes I've made. Like my Yveltal's a lot bulkier than Kazuki's was. I bring it to a lot of Xerneas modes that he didn't. And over the course of time, I've made a few changes. Like my Coco used to be Electro Web, and then I added Light Screen, and that's been infinitely more helpful. You saw probably in the sets I played in Top Cut. Light Screen did a lot of work for reducing damage. And I also, my Coco used to be really slow, and I'm happy I sped that up because it used to be slower than Salamence. But like it's tiny changes, but they make a big difference in the end.
It feels like kind of establishing comfort with the team as you play it for a long time.
Yeah, and I think comfort is so valuable in Ultra. Like I know like from all these times that I've used the team, like every regional I bring it to, I feel more and more confident with it because I've been using it for so long, as opposed to feeling like I need to change to better like adjust to the meta, which I don't think is, for Ultra specifically, I don't think it's the best way to approach it. But.
Yeah.
Cool. So, you know, just to sort of wrap things up so that you can get to your victory lap around the venue, Sword and Shield comes out on Friday. Have you picked your starter yet?
I have not, but I have. I'm gonna join the Grookey gang. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, from this Sobble squad to a Grookey gang, congratulations on your regionals win. Best of luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll be back with a little bit of a wrap up here from Portland. So thank you for watching, everybody, and please stay tuned.